As summer arrives and the temperatures start to climb, it's time to plant warm weather vegetables in your garden. Today, we're discussing 9 easy-to-grow vegetables that enjoy the summer heat. Let's dig in. Welcome to Homegrown, your backyard garden podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rogers, and together we'll explore growing a successful vegetable garden no matter where you live. Today on Homegrown, your backyard garden podcast, we're exploring 9 easy-to-plant and easy-to-grow summer vegetables. If summer hasn't yet arrived in your garden, it will soon. When the weather heats up, many of those spring vegetables you planted will be ready to harvest. Some of them, like broccoli and lettuce, will bolt and go to seed in the heat. But that's okay. You can remove those plants from your garden, add them to your compost pile, and plant these sun-loving vegetables in their place. These 9 summer vegetables can thrive in hot weather with just a little bit of extra care, so you can enjoy a bountiful harvest all summer long. So even if you're like me and not a fan of the heat of summer, your garden can still be successful with these 9 plants. These heat-tolerant vegetables can all be grown in raised beds, containers, or small gardens, making them great for beginners and for those with limited space. Warm weather vegetable plants thrive in the summer because they require hot temperatures and warm soil to grow and produce a good harvest. And summer provides the ideal amount of heat and sunlight for these plants to grow and produce, resulting in a successful garden. On the other hand, cool weather crops like broccoli and lettuce prefer cooler temperatures and shorter daylight hours, making them more difficult to grow during the summer months. In order to maximize your summer harvest, it's important to choose heat-loving vegetables that are well suited to hot weather conditions. First, let's take a look at some tips for growing summer vegetables in general and how to maximize your summer harvest. First, provide plenty of water. Warm weather vegetables need consistent moisture to thrive. Be sure to water regularly if your garden receives less than the recommended amount of water through rainfall. Hot, dry weather and summer winds will dry out your soil quickly, so regular watering is a must. My second tip is to use mulch. Mulching your plants can help keep the soil cool and retain moisture, which is especially important during hot weather. Compost, pine needles, dried grass clippings, shredded dry leaves, and straw are excellent types of mulch for these summer garden plants. Use a 2-inch to 4-inch layer on top of the soil and pull the mulch back just a bit from the plant stems. Tip number 3 is to fertilize. Summer vegetables benefit from regular fertilization, but be careful not to over-fertilize as this can damage the plants. Use the appropriate type of fertilizer for your plants and mix liquid fertilizers correctly. Fourth is to provide enough sunlight. Warm weather vegetables need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day in order to flower and produce. And harvest often. Leaving ripe vegetables on your plants not only results in overripe produce, but also results in less produce. Harvesting regularly encourages plants to continue growing and to produce more flowers and set more fruit. Yes, I know, we're talking about growing vegetables, but to set fruit is a verb, and there's no such verb as to set vegetables. A vegetable plant's life cycle is to grow and to produce fruit, which will then ripen and make seeds. After that is accomplished, the plant dies. Harvesting regularly removes those vegetables that would produce seeds, so the plant continues to produce more fruit in its attempt to make those seeds. And tip number 6 is to know how much space your plants will need and plan your garden layout accordingly. Some hot weather vegetables need a lot of room, such as melons, pumpkins, and winter squash. Be sure to allow them the space they need in order to produce well. Now that we know the care that's required for summer vegetable plants to grow and thrive, let's get into those 9 best heat-loving vegetables. These 9 vegetables love warm weather and are perfect additions to your summer garden. They are ideal for growing in raised beds and even in containers and small spaces. Let's start with tomatoes. Tomatoes might be the reason most people start growing vegetables in their home gardens. Who can resist the flavor of a vine-ripened tomato that you grew yourself? Tomatoes are the most popular vegetable among American gardeners. 86% of home gardeners grow tomatoes. Tomatoes love the summer heat and can produce a large yield if you pay attention to their simple needs: consistent watering and enough space for air to flow freely between the plants. Now, this tip about pruning only applies to indeterminate tomatoes, not to determinate tomatoes. We discussed the difference in these two varieties of tomatoes in episode 10. Many gardeners remove the suckers from their tomato plants, the small new branches that grow between the main stem and the branches. By checking the main stem, you'll notice that the branches of leaves form a Y, with the new set of leaves growing in the intersection of the Y. By removing the suckers, the plant will direct its energy into producing fruit instead of growing even more leaves and branches. An unpruned tomato plant can get out of hand quickly, turning into a jungle of uncontrolled growth. Your tomato plants should be trellised in some way to keep them up off the ground. This not only saves space in your garden, allowing you to grow more tomato plants, but it will also keep the tomatoes themselves safer from insect pests and from rotting where they touch the ground. They'll also be easier to see and harvest. Regular watering is especially important to tomato plants. The fruits tend to crack when the plants are watered inconsistently. Tomato plants are heavy feeders and should be fertilized regularly throughout the growing season. Next is green beans. Green beans are incredibly easy to grow in the summer and will produce a prolific crop. In fact, near the end of the season, some of my friends have been known to say, "I wish my green beans would just stop." Green beans need a minimum of care and are pretty heat resistant. Beans that are planted in a normally rich soil can produce beans even without added fertilizer, since the plants produce their own nitrogen. In fact, beans replace the nitrogen in soil that has been used by previous crops, so they are excellent to plant in ground that grew fruiting varieties the previous year, such as tomatoes and peppers. Beans need 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. They love well-drained soil and need about 2 inches of water per week. Be sure to water the roots and the soil, and not the plants themselves. Add mulch on top of the soil to help retain moisture. High temperatures can cause the blossoms to drop off of bean plants, so you may need to use shade covers if you have a particularly hot summer. Harvest beans when the pods are 4 to 6 inches long and slightly firm. Gently pull the bean pods from the plant. Harvest often to keep your plants producing. Third on our list is cucumbers. Cucumbers are fast-growing and produce well during hot weather. Cucumber plants are either bush type or vining type. Bush varieties are more compact plants, while vining varieties require a trellis and grow upwards. Bush cucumbers are ideal for growing in containers, but vining types can be space-saving when they're grown up a trellis. Cucumbers are best picked when they are small. The skin should be dark green and the fruit should be firm. Check your plants often, like daily, for ripe fruit because it's easy for cucumbers to get away from you. They can be hard to spot because they're nearly the same color as the leaves, so you'll need to really look hard for them. Growing cucumbers on a trellis can make it easier to spot the ripe ones. When cucumbers are too mature, they will be soft with yellow skin and large seeds. Water cucumber plants consistently to keep the soil moist but not wet. While cucumbers like the heat, they can be prone to sunburn, so if you live in a very hot climate, they could appreciate some afternoon shade. Next is zucchini and summer squash. Most summer squash, like zucchini, are very prolific and can withstand hot temperatures very well. You've probably heard the jokes about gardeners leaving bags of zucchini on their neighbors' porches, and that you should keep your car locked during the summer, or you're likely to find bags of zucchini inside. No place is safe. You are subject to being showered with zucchini, whether you're at work, at church, or even in your own driveway. Well, those jokes started because zucchini produce so very, very well. Summer squash are harvested during the summer while the rind is still soft. Winter squash, on the other hand, is harvested in the fall when the rind is hard. Butternut and spaghetti squash are examples of winter squash. Zucchini loves warmth, so plant the seeds directly in your garden or transplant your starter plants after the soil temperature is above 68 degrees. They thrive in the heat, but if your weather is below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the plants will just sit there and sulk until the weather warms up. Zucchini is a compact plant that grows well on the ground with no trellising needed. Water your summer squash with 1 to 2 inches of water per week. Zucchini produce fruit prolifically, and the fruit seems to grow and ripen overnight. Inspect your plants daily and harvest any that are about 6 to 8 inches long. Smaller squash are more tender. Plus, the more zucchini you pick, the more your plants will produce. Eggplant is next. Eggplant is a delicious low-calorie vegetable that's high in fiber and contains small amounts of many vitamins and nutrients. The plants love rich soil with lots of organic matter. Dwarf varieties of eggplant are perfect for small spaces and containers, but the full-size plants are very manageable too. Plant eggplant in the garden in late spring after the last threat of frost has passed and the soil temperature is at least 50 degrees Fahrenheit. They do not like to be transplanted, so planting the seeds directly is the best option. If you do need to transplant eggplant, do so very gently with as little root disturbance as possible. Use cages or stakes to support the mature plants. Those ripening fruits are heavy and can make the plant fall over and possibly break. Eggplant needs about 1 inch of water per week. To harvest, cut the eggplant off of the plant. Don't pull or tear them from the stems. Harvest regularly so the plants will continue to produce throughout the growing season. And next is peppers. There are many varieties of peppers, such as bell or sweet peppers, jalapenos, chili peppers, and many more. They come in a wide variety of colors and shapes, and they all love the summer heat. Enjoy peppers raw in salads, as a snack with dip, or stuffed and baked. Pepper plants can be transplanted in the garden about 2 to 3 weeks after the last frost. They don't mind being transplanted, so you can start your seeds indoors about 6 weeks before the last frost, or you can buy started plants at the local nursery. Peppers need at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight daily in order to produce a good harvest. They enjoy rich, well-draining soil that includes lots of organic matter. Water regularly throughout the season, but let the soil dry out between waterings. Water the roots and the soil, keeping water off the leaves. Although they love warmth, peppers are heat sensitive. If the temperature gets too hot, above 85 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, or too cold at night, or if they have inadequate water, they can drop their blossoms and won't produce fruit. Shade covers can help avoid heat stress, and sun scald if needed. Harvest peppers when they reach their full size and mature color. Green bell peppers are really just immature red peppers, so you can pick them whenever they're the color that you like to eat. Regular harvesting helps to produce more peppers on your plants. Harvest peppers by cutting them off, not by pulling or tearing. Okra is a southern favorite that thrives in hot weather and produces an abundance of edible pods. Okra needs warm weather and warm soil. Wait to plant your okra until at least 2 weeks after your last frost date. Okra seeds have a thick seed coat and need to be soaked in warm water overnight before planting. Sow the seeds 12 to 18 inches apart. Okra is a large plant and needs space to grow. Okra isn't too picky about the soil type as long as it's well draining. Okra plants don't like to have their roots disturbed, so it's best to plant the seeds directly in the garden. Okra plants need about 8 hours of full sun daily. During extremely hot weather, you might need to provide shade if your plants appear to be wilting or if the leaves look burned. Give your okra plants about 1 inch of water every 7 to 10 days. Water more often in very hot, dry climates or if you're having a heat wave. Okra pods appear about 2 months after planting. Harvest the pods when they are 2 to 3 inches long. Cut the stem just above the pod and wear gloves when harvesting because the pods have tiny spines that are irritating to the skin. Next are those summer favorites, melons. Watermelons, cantaloupes, and honeydew are all great options for summer garden. Melons are quite easy to grow. They need about 100 frost-free days to produce fruit. If you have a shorter growing season, you'll need to start your melon plants indoors, about 2 to 4 weeks before the last spring frost. Melons are closely related to cucumbers and have similar growing requirements. Melons need lots of space, depending on the variety. Each vine produces 2 to 4 melons on average. Smaller melons can be grown on a trellis to save space, but you may need to support the fruits. Keep the soil moist but not wet, giving your melon plants 1 to 2 inches of water weekly. Avoid wetting the leaves of the plants, watering the soil and roots only. Sweet potatoes are very easy to grow. The vines are attractive and the young leaves are also edible. Other than regular watering and weeding, although the prolific vines do a good job of suppressing any weeds, sweet potatoes really need very little attention. Sweet potatoes are grown from slips, not from seeds. Slips are easy to grow at home, so save a few of your sweet potatoes from this year's crop so you can start your own slips next year. Wait until the soil has warmed to at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit before planting the sweet potato slips in loose, deep, well-draining soil. Allow about 12 to 18 inches between each plant. Sweet potato plants prefer lots of loose, deep soil that will give those tubers plenty of room to grow underground. Deep raised beds are an ideal choice for growing sweet potatoes, but I've also grown them in, believe it or not, heavy cardboard boxes and in Rubbermaid bins with drainage holes drilled in the bottom. You'll find articles about growing your own sweet potato slips in water and how to grow sweet potatoes in cardboard boxes on my website, oakhillhomestead.com. You'll find the links in the description. Water your sweet potato plants regularly, giving them about an inch of water every week and keeping the soil evenly moist. Water more often when the weather is extremely hot. When the leaves begin to turn slightly yellow, about 90 to 120 days after planting, sweet potatoes are ready to harvest. Dig them up carefully so that you don't damage them with a shovel or garden fork. In fact, if you grow sweet potatoes in containers, you can just turn the containers over and dump everything out. It's a simple matter to dig through the soil with your fingers and remove the potatoes. Be sure to save a few tubers to use in late winter to start next year's slips. So, what's in your summer garden? Growing warm weather vegetables can be a fun and rewarding experience for any gardener, regardless of your level of experience. Beans, cucumbers, zucchini and other summer squash, eggplant, peppers, okra, melons, sweet potatoes, and of course the ever-popular tomato are all vegetables that grow well in the summer. With the right soil, sunlight, and care, you can enjoy a bountiful harvest of delicious and nutritious produce that's perfect for summertime meals. For more information on growing some of the vegetables mentioned in this episode, check out the growing guides on my blog, Oak Hill Homestead. You'll find links in the episode description. In the meantime, I hope you'll subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss a single episode. As always, you'll find the link to the transcript of this episode in the description. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you here next time on Homegrown, Your Backyard Garden Podcast.